crash down on me and drag me into the sea. Why's it so easy to be so indifferent to me when I wear my heart on my sleeve?
Welcome to Skechcraft, the podcast for art, design, and process junkies. I'm Rob Duenas, full-time designer, illustrator, and graphic artist esquire. This is an unedited podcast, which means there will be cursing from time to time, so please be aware. That said, here we go.
Like a willow tree, getting pulled down by gravity. By gravity. My gravity. My gravity.
And I'm back. So, hey, Rob D here. Rob Duenas, artist, esquire. I have returned. Man, it's fucking hot in my room. Okay, so, moving forward, we have the reader feedback Q&A. And this time I'm kind of limited to one question because this is a big one. Okay, let's say two questions. The second one's much shorter. But let's get to the big one. So the big one comes from a fan called Dimitri K. He has a very long last name, I'm assuming is Greek. I don't want to ruin it. So Dimitri K. He actually emailed me in June, so this is a hell of a delay, and I'm going to email him personally tonight to let him know that it's up and that I replied. So Dimitri, I really appreciate you taking the time to email me. He has a question. He just finished a 3-year course on animation in Greece. Always loved drawing, though I never was really serious about it until I decided to go to the school. Couldn't even draw a straight line, and I've spent many nights drawing and watching tutorials, and he's improved a little bit and wants to push himself to get to the next level. His teachers were not that helpful. That's funny. It's, as you said in the video, half the time they didn't even know what they were talking about, and most of the stuff I've learned from watching videos such as yours. Ah, yes. It's a fine way to spend money. So basically he's really asking that, he's really good at duplicating, but what he wants to know is how he can make a living at drawing. I really want to be good at drawing. I often struggle to successfully draw something that I'm happy with. We've all been there. I was wondering anything you could do to get me the tip. I mean, if you were watching yourself years ago, when you were in that position, still learning, what would you say to yourself with your current knowledge? Good question. If I could go back to Rob at 18, or let's say 1920, what would I say to younger Rob? Okay, let's get started. So first, you want to earn a living drawing. It's almost two different things. Let's start with getting better from skill, and then we'll kind of segue that into earning a living drawing. So in terms of skill, the first thing I would do is I would basically talk about your basic construction. And I can't stress this over and over again how important construction and foundation is. I tend to scribble when I first get an idea out. That's true. But I have a very, very, very strong foundation and understanding of perspective and construction and viewpoints. And I can take any drawing I do and turn it around in any direction I need to. The third eye has been opened in that regard. So I would really stress construction, perspective, three-dimensional drawing in a volume, so you fully understand it. Even if you're drawing like a cartoon or if you're drawing photorealistic people, knowing that making them feel like they're tangible. It's very important. It also allows you to apply any style you want over that construction. So someone's like, hey, I want something anime, or hey, I want something that looks like Jim Lee drew it. It's really just a matter of getting the right shapes down, and then applying the style is really simple. I would also tell myself to really allow myself a more rounded experiment more in the fundamentals, like painting. I didn't try enough different things as a kid. I went to Comic-Con early on, and I decided I wanted to pencil comics. So I only worked on penciling comics and drawing things, like cars and desks and stuff. But I didn't really find that, even though I was good at color, I didn't really think about being a colorist. And I didn't paint, even though I enjoy it. And I really wish I had allowed myself to not be so narrow-minded when I was younger in that regard. And to allow myself, if I have the years, which you do, God willing, to experiment a little bit more. To try digital, to try physical, if it's just sitting down and drawing color swatches, or trying to just paint a sky or a circle, just allowing yourself the time to experiment with different things. It could be clay, it could be sculpting. Because a lot of the best ideas tend to translate. Like, if it's not working for me in a traditional medium, can I apply the same idea to my digital work? And I find a lot of times that they sort of cross over in the basic sort of, what do you call that? In the idea of it. So some stuff I do with Prismas, maybe I'm not as good with rendering them with actual Prismacolor, but in the computer I can blend them much easier. And so I built a lot of tools that sort of mimic those things, by scanning in textures and different things to do that. So I would allow myself a more broader range of experimentation at that age. Also, let's see here. I have a bunch of things written down. I don't remind myself that you don't have to be the best. Even though you want to make a living at doing this, anybody in any field, when they want to get into something, say professionally, you tend to look at who you consider to be the best, and you gun for them. And that's admirable. But it's also unrealistic, because everybody's on their own path. And very few people start off at the level of, say, a Jim Lee. Like you get to there. I mean, Jim Lee kind of did, but there are exceptions. And most of us are not that exception. So I remind myself, look, I don't have to be the best artist to be a full-time artist, or to even just make side money off it. And that's the first thing I want to get into when it comes to making money, is, you want to be at it full-time, but just because you're not a full-time artist doesn't mean you're not a professional artist. A professional artist is someone who gets paid to draw, one way or the other. That means you're bringing in income, creating art. And I spent so long thinking, well, if I'm not doing it full-time, then I'm nobody. And the reality is that when you have a full-time job making art, the last thing you want to make when you come home is more art. Especially, and it's a strange vicious cycle, because the work that you do at a day job, art-wise, I mean, comics aside, and even then it's questionable, isn't always the kind of stuff you wanted to draw, or you want to represent you. I mean, I never show any of the t-shirts I do, not because they're bad, but because I don't want any more t-shirt work at all, ever, from anybody, under any circumstance. I don't want one offer. I don't show them. If I showed people with the shirts that I did, they would go and spend money on those shirts, thinking it's helping me. Doesn't help me. Those shirts are going to make their money whether the people online support them or not. And I don't see one dime more from it. I don't get a bonus or anything like that. So I'd rather they see the art that I make, my vision, not something that maybe some art director touched on, or I want my vision and my complete idea. So you have to remember, that, and I was talking about this briefly at the last podcast, that you may have a dream to work on something or to do something, and then you get that shot to do it, and you find out it didn't really roll the way you wanted it to. Case in point, when I wanted to be a full-time comic book artist, that was in the early 90s, and people were making a lot of money being comic book artists. I mean, you were like a rock star. I mean, like these guys at Image, they were selling 1 million copies an issue. You're just like, man, I could be fucking rich and famous just getting to draw the shit I love to draw. I mean, this would be awesome. And that all has gone away. Independent, now you're looking at like on an average of $100 a page, unless you're already well known, then those guys get like 1,000, but the rest of us get chicken shit scratch. So a lot of the art ends up being outsourced to like South America, where $100 a page is essentially $1,000. But where I live in San Diego, working my ass off 3 days for $100, before taxes, and it's probably going to take 60 to 90 days to get here. It's just not the dream I signed up for. And in the last few years, especially since 2009, I've had to really sort of I've been troubled by this, because this is not what I had expected. And perhaps if I just drew like modern comic book artists, then I could solve a lot of my problems. I could just really push to go to Marvel and do a lot of photorealistic looking people. But I hate that shit. Like, I hate it. It doesn't look like the stuff I wanted to draw growing up. And I'm a pretty good... And here's the thing. You don't know what you're going to be good at. Even though you want to be an artist, that implies a lot of different things. You want to make a living being creative, or you want to make a living being what exactly? What are you specifically looking for? I had wanted to make a living penciling comic books. One, the kinds of things that I like to draw are not what sell comic books anymore. Two, if people see something that isn't exactly photorealistic, they think you draw cartoons, which means I get put on a lot of kiddie shit. So I spend a lot of time drawing a lot of goofy-ass children's books that you know, they're fine products. They're not like, oh, this is retarded shit. I have fun with them. You know, I'm a big kid at heart. But, you know, I would love to, like, draw, like, Spawn from the 90s. Like, that's what I would want to do. And publishers don't want that. You know, they either want dinosaurs versus ninjas, and it looks, you know, like it looks, just get it done now. You know, or for me at least. Or they want me to draw, like, the Richie Rich stuff, which is fine. But, I mean... You know, it's just like, you know, I actually enjoy drawing those covers, but, you know, I'd want a whole book, and I want it to be at the level of that cover detail, and that's where my vision sort of doesn't really gel with the business. And this is a business, comics, you know, I mean, to say the obvious. So I've had to go out and sort of create my own business, and... I didn't intend to be an entrepreneur, but when I look more upon what I grew up with the rise of Image, Dave Sim, you know, Cerebus, Turtles, Mirage Studios, Bone, these were the things I was attracted to. I didn't care about reading Spider-Man or Batman or Superman. I liked Turtles when they first came out, independent comic. I liked Cerebus when I read them in the Turtles, independent comic. I liked Bone, independent comic. Spawn, independent comic. Savage Dragon, independent comic. You know, the Cliffhanger stuff, those were independent comics, you know, before Wildstorm bought all those guys out. Mad Men, independent comic. Like I love the indie stuff, and it's been hard, you know, for me to like go, well, I guess I'm gonna have to do this on my own. It wasn't until I met Tom that I was even like, can I even do anything in modern comics? And Tom's been really cool and patient with my ass. Like so it's just been, you know, you can say you can't always guide the options available to you, but in the face of all those options, sometimes you have to make your own headway. You know, that leads me to a couple other points is, you know, the things that didn't exist when I was 19 was I had the internet. But it wasn't like this now. You can get an audience. And if you're learning how to draw, I recommend you just start a blog that sort of tracks your stuff, you know? So, yeah, you know, in the next couple years, you're going to be like, hey, I did this, here's how I did this, here's how I did this. Don't really take it like, don't write it like you're trying to teach people how to draw. Like you're some authority, because they'll look at what you're doing and, you know, go, man, you know, you don't really know what you're doing. What do you know, I mean, it isn't the greatest art. But you can say, look, I'm getting better. This is my journey. You know, here's my steps. Here's what I learned. This is going good. This is going well. Here's this project. And track all these things. You can build an audience by people growing with you. And one of the things that I'm always consistently surprised about when I go to cons is people come up to me and go, you taught me how to draw. And they're like 17. I'm like, what? They're like, yeah, like 4 years ago I saw you in this magazine and I wanted to draw like you, and I've been this whole time I've been following you. I'm like, I didn't even know, you know, and that's always humbling because you're like, I'm like nobody, you know, but not to them. So people love to follow journeys rather than being lectured at. And I try to never be that guy telling people how to do things. I try to show you the path I took and how I went about to do it. Not just from a technical standpoint, like, oh, click on this button, do this. But like from a philosophy standpoint, from a philosophical point, like, well, here was my reasoning and what led me on this path and how I sort of arrived at these situations. Because the one thing art schools can't teach you, they can't teach you quality. That's an inherent gift. Okay, no one can teach you that. You know, and two, they cannot teach you constructive logic, reasoning, for the lack of a better term. I'm not the greatest wordsmith when I talk, but what I'm trying to say is, like, how can they tell you how to solve problems in an 11-week class? They're not going to teach you how to help solve problems. They're just going to give you the answer, you know, or point you to something that they learned, you know. But when you're faced with well, you know, I have to paint a space background, and I have never done that. Should I get a photograph of space? You know, should I paint how I think space feels? I mean, there's a lot of options to you. You know, it depends on like what you're trying to go for, and trying to carry that over into your process, regardless of the style. So, man, this could go on and on. I don't want to lose sight. But some other quick things that I would give myself is give yourself clear short-term goals. That was a problem I've always had. Is I had long-term goals. I had big vision plans, and the skill to not the skill to create it. I would write entire scripts to movies I could never produce. I would write comic book series that I just were incapable of drawing. I wrote this whole thing once called Interstate Ronin. It was sort of a cross between like Mad Max and Star Wars. Like these guys had these big Mopar cars, but inside were built-in shields and like you know, guns and stuff. But they would have this element of like 70s kind of like drag racing, and they had like switchblades, but the switchblades would be like kind of like lightsabers. Like the blades would extend out, and it would have this whole like, this is like in 2000. You know, like I just wanted to sort of cross like Kenny Wayne Shepherd and Mad Max and I guess Fast and the Furious, but that was before that came out. Like Steve McQueen, you know, like that kind of stuff with those things. And I didn't know how to draw a fucking car. Like I was like, I mean, I'd come up with these things that were like, well, what do? I go learn to draw cars, and so I would sit down and learn to draw cars. But really, what I should have done was get myself a clearer short-term goal. Maybe like a series of 3 drawings that sort of explain each point, you know, and just have at it. So give yourself really short-term goals, commissions, prints, whatever you're going to do, but something that is attainable and can be done within a month at the worst, right? Another thing you should remind yourself is you compete only with yourself. So you can look at your art and my art and everyone's art all you like and go, well, I'm not as good as this guy, or this guy's pretty good, or this girl's pretty good, and wow, this artist's art is dope, mine sucks, or whatever. And it really accomplishes nothing, because when people hire you for work, they don't hire you based on how you are compared to the entire industry. They hire you based on what you do or what you did the last time. So try to remember at all times that you can really be taken with somebody's art or something you've seen, but you're not in direct competition with them, okay? You're just in the realm, you're in the universe, but you're on your own terms. No one's going to look at a piece you did and go, yeah, well, you know, Rob D did it better. And sometimes people do that, but we call those people assholes, right? A kid asked me that once at Tucson Con, you know, about that sort of thing. And I said, you know, sometimes you get these guys at school who, like, they'll look at something you do and they'll go, yeah, but, you know, so-and-so did it better. And his mom was just, like, shaking his head. I'm like, yeah, those are jerks. And those are jealous people who can't draw. Anyone who looks at your art and tells you how someone else did something really good, and they aren't really saying, hey, yeah, that's cool, look at what I did, you know, and what do you think about this, you know, and I was working on it. If they aren't directly, like, related to the stuff they're doing, but they're pointing someone else out, then that's a really bad form of passive-aggressive behavior, and you can't allow that to, like, shake you. So, you only compete with yourself. Also remember, it's okay to fail. You know, like I did this piece, I'm not happy with it, you know. That doesn't mean I failed. In my mind, I'm like, it's okay to not like it, Rob. Doesn't really mean I failed. I met what they wanted. They're happy with it. The people who read the magazine are going to be happy with it. Internally, I'm not cool with it, but I kind of need to keep that to myself. I mean, even though I put this on the podcast, but I need to be okay that I'm okay that it's not cool. Not lament and dwell and try to fix everything all the time. So that can be a problem. I recently did a cover for Tom, pole dancing cover that I was totally unhappy with. So I recolored the whole thing from scratch. And it actually had like 3 times the views on DeviantArt. So I was like, much better, and I gave it to Tom, and he was happy. And then when they went to print the issue, because it printed late, he forgot about that cover and printed the old one. So the old one's out in circulation, and I'm just like, son of a bitch, dude, you know, like, and I can't, you know, and people from the shop, you know, they'll go, man, it sold out, I don't know what you're stressing about. And I'm just like, I don't care, I mean, like, that's not the one I wanted, but, you know, you gotta let it go. You know, it's okay to fail, and it's okay to win, too, you know, like, when you do well, and people give you compliments, don't throw them under the bus. If someone says, man, I love your art, just go, man, I suck, you know, but it's not as good as Rob over there, you know, it's not as good as so-and-so. If someone gives you a compliment, say thank you, you know, like it's okay to to feel okay. It's not an egotistical thing. You know, the ego comes in check when someone says, I like your work, and you're like, fuck, of course you do, you know? I mean, it's fucking me, you know? And you got problems. Another point I'd give myself to wrap this all up is two things. One, I would tell myself that there's a difference between art and skill. To me, art is emotional. It's like attitude. Artistic is a feeling that something invokes or causes you to have when you look at it. Like you look at something and you're like, wow, I really like it, but not because like it was rendered really well, but because it's awesome. Like I learned this from clothing. You know, like the bat symbol is not exactly the world's most craziest design or drawing, but it invokes a feeling of awesomeness. So there's a difference between that and, say, skill. And I would say that, you know, like if you had a picture of Batman, like for the lack of a better term, like Tim Sale, right? Let's say you had like a silhouette of Batman, just his cape and some elements showing off in a black shirt, it would look really awesome. It would be cool and moody. And then I can have a really high-rendered piece of Alex Ross Batman art, right? And I would say the Batman art from Alex Ross is incredibly detailed and phenomenal. But I would pick the other one, because the other one is just, for me, it's iconic. It's like an expression. So I would remind myself, and I'm advised to remind you, that an emotion can get you more places sometimes than technical skill. Skill is like time served. You're going to get better as you go, unless you're like, you know, not good at it. But if you're a pretty rounded artist, you're going to get better as you go, statistically speaking. But whether that art resonates with people, whether it has that certain something, that je ne sais quoi, I get that a lot. Like, your art really just sort of caught my eye somehow. I try to make certain people can feel something when I make it. Like, it invokes an emotion one way or the other. So, and when it doesn't do that, when it sort of comes off as generic, and I put that in quotation marks, that's when I'm not happy with something. It doesn't really make me feel anything. It's just like, okay, that's cool, whatever, you know? So I would tell myself to just lean on that. I spent so much time on skill that there's really only so good sometimes you can get to, you know? Like, I'm never going to be like Alex Ross or someone like that, you know? I'm not that guy, but I can make some pretty cool shit. So, and then lastly, at the end of the day, man, you got to sell yourself, dude. You know, a lot of artists don't want to do it. They go to cons, they sit there, they want people to come up to them. I'm not saying reach out and drag people to your desk, but you need to make art that catches someone's eye. And then when they get there, you need to be the coolest cat they ever met, and you got to sell it to them. And if you want to work somewhere, you got to be that cat that's like, man, that's a really cool cat. You got to sell yourself, dude, to an extent, you know, and it's exhausting, and you'd rather not do it, but to be a good marketing person and a salesperson, you got to do it, man. No one's going to do it for you. And no school can teach you that. They're too busy selling themselves to teach you how to, you know, sell your shit. They're like, well, we're going to promise everything in the world, and they don't do shit. It's up to you, man. And I'd say that take your biggest weakness and market that as your biggest strength. Case in point, I have a friend who's making a card game, and it's going to be a while before it's done. He wants to kickstart the whole thing. It's a big tabletop thing, requires all these pieces. And I said, you know, in the meantime, all these people are playtesting his game. I said, you could be selling like $5 versions of this game. You know, he has like all the cards sketched out. I'm like, just print the cards on like, you know, some decent paper, have them all trimmed down pretty well, and call it the sketch card set. And like, you know, it's like beta set 1, you know, like $5. Get a sack with all the pieces in it, put everything in plastic baggies, and make it extra $300-400 every time you go out to do it, you know? Take them to different places, play test them, you know? Say it's free to play here, but if you'd like to keep it, it's $5, you know? Got little sackies right here you can get them on, and they're signed and numbered, and these are exclusive and only available here, you know? And so you can take the fact that you don't have a finished product and make that, right, one of your selling points. And that is the kind of stuff, I'm telling you folks, that can change your life, at least cover supplies and coffee, all right? So that's it. And I think that's an awful lot of fucking advice for one podcast. So I'm exhausted. Oh, I had the second question. The second question comes from XX. I can't read my writing. Extra fall off XX. It's a DeviantArt guy. Extra fallout XX, right? They had a question on Wacom's, and I'll let them know it's on this podcast. And he wanted to know, or she wanted to know, what a good Wacom would be for a starter person. And I mean, it's kind of a simple question, but I'll answer it here. And that's just get an entry-level bamboo. I think they're like $60, $90. You could probably get one off Craigslist from someone for half that cost, or used somewhere. And just get one of those. They're pretty cheap. When you want to upgrade, if you're looking at like an Intuos, or a Cintiq, that costs you a lot more. Just remember, spending money does not equal buying skill. You can spend $5,000 on a Cintiq and realize you hate it, and now it's a $5,000 paperweight. So it doesn't give you anything. Hardware, opens doors and likewise creates new corridors to cross. And sometimes they're not paths you wanted to take, whether you think it or not. So my advice is to always spend the smallest amount of money and find someone that has a great return plan. If you can get on Amazon, do it, because you have 45 days to return it. Amazon has the best return policy I have ever seen, and that's why they're kicking the shit out of big box stores, and it's not because it's online. Because I can return anything today within 45 days, pretty much simple like a game that I'm making. And it's good to go. So that's that, folks. I'm out of here. Talk to you later. Bye.